The alphabet starts with A. Well, that's all I have for. Oh, no, I have to do this. So the Anaheim Ducks are a team that, at the time I'm recording this, are 500 and they've been flirting with getting worse, or are they just as good as they were last year? Now, the only Ducks gear I have is this hat right now, and I've looked at other hats that I may pick up, but this is the only one I have. I had a Ducks jersey, Mighty Ducks jersey, actually, the one they wore their first year in the NHL, but I don't have it. So I figured this would be as passive aggressive as I could get would be the workings. And that's as far as I'm going to go. I'm going to keep any personal feelings I have about Anaheim and any certain Kessler named players or Perry named players. I'm going to keep it out of the discussion. When the Ducks came into the league in 93-94, it was a play by Disney. And it was a play by Disney to get into the NHL when it was considered to be kind of the in thing to get into. Okay, the NHL was very popular at the time, and that's when the Fox glowing puck. It was around that time, and they named the team the Mighty Ducks after the movies, which were awful. I hated every Mighty Ducks movie. I watched, I think, 10 minutes of the first one. I tried to watch 5 minutes of the second, and I'm like, no, this is not hockey. No. And I don't know where to start with that. When they changed their name to the Ducks, there was a lot of people who said, well, that sucks, that they went to this as their logo and they didn't really have one. And I remember saying at the time, well, that D, the web foot on the D, they can use that as a logo. And it took a while for that to come in. So their logo was just Ducks. And it was very plain and very boring. But the first year they changed that jersey, they won the Stanley Cup. A friend of mine took a girl to a Canucks game against the Ducks that year. And even she made a remark at the start of the game, well, what's the Ducks logo? And he's like, that's it. She's like, that's the regular, they're wearing that for the game? Because she saw the jersey with Ducks written on it, she's like, okay, well, they're going to wear something else. No, that's their jersey. So the Ducks came in as the Mighty Ducks. They played that way for the first 12 years they were in the NHL. In the beginning, they went with the more veteran lineup in their expansion year than Florida. No, they went with a younger group than Florida, that's right. But they still managed to get 71 points out of them in that first season because their initial coach was Ron Wilson. So you want to look at why Ron Wilson became a coaching commodity that eventually would go to Toronto and destroy that. And it was his run with Anaheim. Their first year they had 71 points. Their second year they had 37 points in the lockout shortened 48-game season. They had 78 points the third season, and then they had 85 points the fourth season when they made the playoffs for the first time. At that point, Pierre Pagé took over. He lasted a year. I remember he was a disaster. It baffled me that they went with Pagé, because he'd been a disaster in Quebec, too, as I remember. Craig Hartsburg was coach in 98-99, and then 99-2000. Wasn't very good either. They changed over to Guy Chiron in 2000-2001. That didn't work very well. So the Ducks were in a bit of a rough patch early on in their existence. Brian Murray was coach in 2001-2002. And then Mike Babcock came in 2002-2003. And his first year, they lost the Stanley Cup final. So they went from out of the playoffs 69 points to losing the final with 95 points. So you look at why Babcock is viewed as one of the best coaches around. It started with that season in Anaheim. That was where it began. And he was coach there until 04-05. In 2003-2004, they actually missed the playoffs. So while Babcock is viewed as this great coach, his track record in Anaheim, other than he had 2 seasons, because 04-05 didn't happen as a season. That was the one that was canceled. But his track record was good that first season. Second season, eh. And then they went over after that to Randy Carlyle. And Carlyle was coached from 05-06 to 10-11. And of course, Carlyle famously won the Stanley Cup with them. But the interesting part is after that, they tailed off. So Carlyle was able to come in and get them at that level, and then it just tailed off after that. And there's been some concern with them bringing Carlyle back after, I think, Boudreau was the coach to replace Carlyle. Now Carlyle's replaced Boudreau. And there's a lot of concern about whether or not that's going to lead to some better results. But, I mean, if you look at the upcoming games for the Ducks, and again, at the time that I'm taping this, which is October 27th, they're middle of the road. They're at home to Columbus, they're in LA, then they're at home against Pittsburgh, Arizona, Calgary, then they're in Columbus, Carolina, Nashville. That's a very Anaheim-friendly schedule. So they can win quite a bit in that period in time. I really still think the Ducks finish second in the division this year. They are coming off 4 straight first-place finishes. Very hard to win 5 in a row. I mean, 4 in a row is impressive enough. But their point totals have gone. They had 66 points that first year, which was a 48-game schedule. Again, lockout shortened. Then they had 116 points, 109 points, 103 points. So there is a descent there. It's just it's not as visible if you just look at where they finished in the standings. But in terms of their point totals, they have been dropping the last 2 years. And their core is flirting with that crest of the hill. Not over the hill, but they're flirting with it. Now, in terms of their best season, their most points were in 13-14 when they had the 116 points. Their most losses were 93-94, their first season with 46. The most goals they've ever scored, 266 in the 13-14 season, which actually is kind of low for a number one scoring season. But then again, they came in during the dead puck era. So, fewest goals against was in 2007-2008 when they had 191. Most penalty minutes in a season was actually 97-98. So if you're going to think the truculence of the 07 team was the winner, no. 97-98, that 1,843 penalty minutes. Although all 1,800 penalty minutes were probably Stu Crimson. Most shutouts in the season was 9 in 2002-2003. And, you know, they've got a lot of decent records. Most points in a rookie season, Bobby Ryan with 57. Most points by a left winger, Paul Kariya with 108. Right winger, Teemu Selanne with 109. Most points by a center, 91 by Getzlaf. So that's relatively low by NHL standards, but again, they came in during the puck era, dead puck era. So let's take a look at the career stats of the Anaheim Ducks. Alright, I could put the book down for this part. And I should probably keep it open to that page. This video's going to get like 150 views, and it's going to be all Ducks fans. Games played, Teemu Selanne's number one with 966 games. He's also number one in points with 988. I'm going to look for just surprises here. So when you look at the top 10 games played, you've got Corey Perry, Ryan Getzlaf, Steve Ruchin has 616 for 4th place. Paul Kariya with 606. Ruslan Saleh is number 6 with 594. Sammy Paulson, 527. Then Boscheman. Jean-Sebastien Giguère, a goaltender, comes in at 9th with 447 games. And Guy Hebert, also a goaltender, comes in 10th with 441. These stats are live. Like, this is up to today. Goals, Teemu Selanne is 457. So that's a very impressive record. I don't think anybody's going to pass that. Although Corey Perry has 334. Paul Kariya scored 300. Getzlaf 222. Ruchin, so Steve Ruchin 153. I really liked Steve Ruchin. He was one of my favorites early on for the Ducks. Bobby Ryan 147. Andy McDonald, he was also one of my favorites. Shame injuries cut his career short. He had 92 goals. Chris Kunitz 81. Andrew Cogliano with 76 is 9th on their list right now. You wouldn't expect that other than the fact that Cogliano never misses a game. Matt Cullen with 65 is 10th. On the assists leaderboard, it's pretty much the same guys, except you have Scott Niedermayer with 204 assists in 6th place. Cam Fowler with 148 points is in 8th place. He's 19 behind Andy McDonald. And on the points mark, Chris Kunitz has 192 for 10th place. That's a low total, but again, dead puck era. So that overrules so many things. And then in terms of other stats that I found interesting, their penalty minutes leader all time is Corey Perry with 946. George Peros is second with 812, to the surprise of nobody. Stu Grimson has 583. He's 8th place, but he had 1,800 penalty minutes in 97-98. They just don't show up here for whatever reason. Dave Karpa, 788 penalty minutes, 3rd place. Getzlaf had 687. Solani, 471, but he played a lot of games, so penalty minutes are going to add up. And Warren Reichel with 416, and of course Reichel's son Kirby is now a farmhand for the Toronto Maple Leafs, who didn't foresee himself as being a farmhand. All-time game-winning goals for the Ducks. Teemu Selanne's 77. Right now looks like it's not going to be approached. Corey Perry's got 59. Getzlaf has 45. Correa with 44. Ruchin 23. Kunitz and Bobby Ryan and Andy McDonald all had 15. And then tied for 9th place are Michael Clare and Matt Bolesky. Shorthanded goals. This is an interesting one too that I saw. Paul Correa with 16. Andrew Cogliano with 12 is second on the list. Tard Marchand. Marchand was... I hated him shorthanded because he scored a lot. 8 shorthanded goals. I know he had a bunch for Edmonton too. That'll show up when I do the Edmonton video. Sammy Paulson with 9 is 3rd place. Then Corey Perry. Joe Sacco with 6. Jakob Silverberg with 4 is in 9th place. And then in 10th, you've got Bob Corkum, Bobby Ryan, Sean Van Allen, Rob Niedermeyer, and Travis Moen with 3 each. Power play goals. There was an interesting one I saw in here. Of course, Solani with 182 is a runaway first place. TV's distracting. I gotta... Wowzers. I changed the channel from that. Just Sophia Yerskovich. Anyways. Korea, Perry, Getzlav, Ruchin. So Ruchin had 58 power play goals as a Duck. Scott Niedermayer had 39, which is impressive. And then Marty McInnes is 10th place with 25 power play goals. Let's see. Other interesting stats in their history. Shooting percentage. Teemu Selanne's number 1 with a 15.4 shooting percentage. Dustin Penner is 6th place with a 13.1. Andrew Cogliano has 12. He's at 8th spot. Peter Duris is in 10th place with an 11.7 shooting percentage. So that's pretty cool. And Saku Koivu actually sits at 4th on the list with 13.6. So in terms of where the Ducks fit in, I mean, the Ducks have a Stanley Cup, and they're shortly a little bit over 20 years in the league. The Ducks are a successful franchise, and they're a successful franchise where we, the hockey purists in Canada, didn't think it was going to work. You had Disney, the Mighty Ducks name, which was stupid at the time it came in. A lot of you guys who are watching are going to be like, no, it wasn't. Okay, if you were a kid when the Mighty Ducks name came in, you loved it. But if you're a hockey purist, you're like, no, this is not going to work. And they proved it. They overcame the goofy logo, and they made it work. They really did. They made it work. Between the logo, the mascot being Goofy, the Wild Wing, and that horrible Wild Wing jersey, there's so much about the Ducks that screamed, for lack of a better term, Mickey Mouse. Like, it just screamed that the whole team was a joke. And yet, the team itself on the ice was never a joke. Even when they were down, they've never been a joke. And while they are my least favorite team, I have respect for what the team has done, And in terms of whether or not they're going to win another Stanley Cup in the next 5 years, it's definitely possible. They've made a living off making their goaltenders look really good. I look at their wins totals. Jean-Sebastien Jaguar's number one with 206. Guy Hebert's second with 173. Jonas Hiller's third with 162. And in fourth place is Freddie Andersen. And what's interesting with that is, number one in save percentage, career, is Frederik Andersen with a 918. Jonas Hiller's second with 916. Jean-Sebastien Jaguar's third with a 914. Guy Hebert at a 911. Then Ilya Bryzgalov at a 904. And in sixth place is Michael Stalenkov with an 897. I don't know how many games you have to play to qualify for this list. Obviously, Stalenkov, I wouldn't think Stalenkov's would be top six if you included everybody who suited up for the Ducks. Goals against average, Freddie Andersen's number one, too. Jean-Sebastien Jaguar's second with 2.47. Freddie Andersen had a 2.33. So for anybody who thinks that Andersen's not a good goaltender, the numbers just don't bear that out. Number one in shutouts in Ducks history is Jean-Sebastien Jaguar with 32. Guy Hebert 27. Jonas Hiller 21. Freddie Andersen's there with 6, tied with John Gibson. Victor Fast had 4. Stalenkov had 3, tied with Gerber. And then tied with 2 are Dominic Roussel, Curtis McElhenney, and Ilya Bryzgalov. The interesting thing there is, you would think that Bryzgalov would have more than 2, but he didn't play a lot in Anaheim, and he was a reliever, basically, for Jean-Sebastien Jaguar. So he didn't get that opportunity, but it is funny to see how the Ducks, a team that does very well defensively, always has good goals against, always has good numbers in their own zone. Their goaltenders are good. Jean-Sebastien Jaguar won the Conn Smythe without the team winning the Stanley Cup, and he was the guy that should have won it. He was fantastic the year they went to the final and didn't win. And I desperately wanted the Ducks to win that year. That was 2003. And then in 2007, when they won the Stanley Cup, he was a big part of that too. So Jaguar is a great goaltender, but you look beyond that, and it's not a who's who of great goaltenders. And their defense has just been that good. It really has. It's been that good. That it's made goaltenders who are probably average look better than average. Much better than average. So, I don't know. I mean, if I was going to grade them as a franchise, an A overall, like just for general, just for stability, just for not being as reactionary as some other teams are in the NHL. Maybe that comes from the fact that they play in California and they don't have the same pressure that like a Canadian team does or an original 16 back east in the NHL does. But they're a very smart team. And I don't have... I don't know how to put this. Because I really, in terms of teams I cheer for, they're 30th out of 30. But I have the utmost respect for the organization and for the way it's run. I really do. I think that bringing back Carlisle could be a mistake short term, but if it is a mistake, they'll fix it. And they'll fix it before the end of the year if it's a mistake. But we'll see. Anyways, that's my history of the Anaheim Ducks thus far. They're, like I said, I'm not going to get into any personal feelings on the matter or anything like that. I just figured I would make mention of the records, who's, where in the standings in terms of the all-time scorers, and look at where the team's been and where the team's going. Now, while Page was the goofiest coach they've had, oddest coach, the crazy eyes, their captains was Troy Loney the first year, Randy Ladouceur for 2 years after that, Paul Kariya, then Kariya and Solani shared it, then it went back to Kariya, then Ruchin had it, then Niedermeyer had it, then Pronger had it, then it went to Niedermeyer, and it's been Getzlaf since 10-11. So it's pretty much a who's who when you look at the captain's history. Bob Murray's been a fantastic GM for them. And the only retired number they have is Teemu Selanne's. They should retire Kariya's. At least I think they should retire Koreas, personally. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Um, Trying to find anything else that might be interesting in here. Their longest winning streak was 13. That was from December 6th to 18th in 2013. And their longest losing streak was 8 overall in October 12th to 30th of 96 and November 3rd to 20th of 2005. So yeah, they've been a very steady franchise. Oh, this is an interesting stat. Their all-time record, 819 wins, 686 losses, 107 ties, and 126 overtime losses. So now, if you take those overtime losses and move them over, they are an above 500 team in the NHL. They're legitly an above 500 team, even though they were an expansion team, 22 years ago. And they've never really been very far below 500 in their entire NHL lives. And I think with the way that team's run, they never will be. And believe me, when I'm talking about the 30th favorite team out of 30, it would be kind of fun to see them down at the bottom. It'll never happen. I don't think it'll ever happen. So, anyways, thanks for watching. These videos are going to be longer. They're going to be more than 20 minutes. And when I start getting into teams like Montreal, Toronto, Boston, Chicago, they're probably going to run quite a long time because I want to encapsulate as much as I can. The Ducks also have the advantage that I've watched the entire history of the team. So I know why I hate them, and I know why I respect them. And it is that respect that in this video has overridden anything else. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're here, because I'm doing history of every team in the league. And yeah, it's going to be fun to go through this and see where we're at a year from now, and whether or not I'm going to need to do them again or do certain ones again because things have changed. We'll see. Anyways, thanks for watching.